Saw dudes, if you want to play Destiny 2 in third person and conquer the new Elden Ring DLC, this build is for you. I'm doubling down on Prismatic Titan because I don't really give a crap about being weak, I only care about being a sword-wielding Giga Chad that will never die. We're going to focus on utilizing Stronghold and Ergo Sum, yes that's how you pronounce it. With Prismatic, you'll be able to solo Millennia with no damage taken. For reference, some of the background gameplay is in an expert lost sector 20 light under. Let's get started. Alright, so to navigate the lands between effectively, you have to understand the game loop. It's pretty simple. When first starting combat, use your chosen ranged weapon, whatever that may be. You want to chunk down some enemies before committing to using your sword. Once you get close enough, hold the guard button to build up stacks of Stronghold's buff. Once you accumulate some, release the guard and attack with your sword to gain restoration times 2. Use Ergo Sum to your advantage and activate Prismatic when it comes up. Super when you need to, and get to killing the Elden Beast. Rinse and repeat. Now let's get to the spells. For the super, we're going to use Twilight Arsenal since it grants us the ability to do heavy damage from range and also ties into the Blade Master build identity. It will also play into our fragment choice later on. Even though we aren't using that many guns in this build, I suggest running Rally Barricade. It's a safer option and will work much better with Drenger's Lash. The melee ability doesn't matter much at all since we are locked out of using it while we have a sword equipped. You can use anything, but I've been using Shiver Strike for movement. Finally, I chose to use Glacier Grenade for the immediate crowd control and area damage. The aspects we will be using are Diamond Lance and Drenger's Lash. Thank God we're not using Consecration. Diamond Lance causes enemies that are killed by stasis damage to spawn a stasis lance. The lances can be picked up and either thrown or slammed, with both attacks freezing enemies that are hit. Drenger's Lash causes Barricade Cast to send out a strand projectile across the ground, which suspends enemies that are hit by it. It's time to go over the fragments. For the swordsman, we will be using Facet of Defiance, Hope, Mending, Protection, Purpose, and Ruin. Defiance causes our finishers to apply volatile to nearby enemies. This might seem like a weird choice, but it's great because it helps with ad clear and can potentially conserve ammo. Hope grants a 60% additional base class ability regenerate while affected by an elemental buff. Mending causes grenade kills to grant cure times 1, and Prismatic grenade kills to grant cure times 2. Protection grants 15% damage resistance while within 15 meters of 3 enemies. Purpose grants an elemental buff on an ore pickup depending on the equipped super. For our case, we're going to get a Void Overshield. Finally, Ruin increases the damage done by shattering crystals or enemies and the radius of ignitions. Now let's get to the armor. On the helmet, I used a variable Siphon mod, Heavy Ammo Finder, and Font of Wisdom. The Siphon mod will change depending on the Ergo Sum element. For strongholds, I used Firepower, Bolstering Detonation, and Font of Focus. On the chestplate, there was Sniper Damage Resistance, Lucent Blades, and a Variable Resistance mod. The boots had Recuperation and 2 copies of a Variable Weapon Surge. These surges will change depending on your weapon choice. Lastly, the mark had Bomber, Reaper, and Time Dilation. Okay, let's get to the stats. You're a Titan, so max out Resilience. Just do it, don't let me catch you not doing it. Then you'll want to hit 70 Discipline for the maxed out stat with Font of Focus. After that, you can focus on Intellect to get a lower super cooldown. To be honest, the rest of the points can go into mobility or recovery if you just want to move around faster or heal faster in combat. If you like the theme build so far, consider dropping a sub. I would greatly appreciate it, and it would help me out with my crippling YouTube post schedule. Before moving on to the weapon loadout section, let's discuss what roles of Ergo Sum you should be chasing since they will drastically change the way you play. Ergo Sum can roll as a Wave, Caster, Lightweight, Vortex, or Aggressive Frame sword. Wave and Caster frames are generally regarded as more ad clear focus, but the latter can perform decent boss damage from a distance. Light, Vortex, and Aggressive frames are more well known for their higher damage numbers up close. Regardless of the element, keep an eye out for Wolfpack rounds, since it helps with ad clear and damage overall. Also, the effect does work on your own legendary heavy sword, so if you want to use Ergo Sum as an ad clear weapon primarily, it works extremely well. I would advise getting Wolfpack rounds with either a lightweight or aggressive frame, since those frames cost the least amount of ammo to heavy attack with. This means you can spam the angry robots even more. Alright, for the arc version of the sword, I would prioritize getting a roll with Arc Conductor. This perk turns the weapon into an ad clear machine. I want to say that anything between a 7 to 8 meter radius gets hit with electricity after the perk activates. Mind you, this happens automatically, so once you heavy attack, everything is going to die. Solar Ergo Sums have a couple of good options. If you want to deal damage from afar, I would chase a caster frame with either Wolfpack rounds or the Perfect Fifth. Wolfpack rounds can chase after red bars, and the Perfect Fifth can proc twice on the heavy attack. These rolls aren't the best for DPS, but they do handle long range situations well. If you prefer getting up close and personal, try out a wave frame with Sacred Flame. Heavy attacks will launch you forward and mark targets. The next aerial light attack will send you careening towards a marked target and cause the target to explode. This, again, is an ad clear roll, but a very fun one. Finally, for Void, we have one really good option for champion or boss DPS, which is a Vortex frame plus Unplanned Reprieve. The heavy attack on this version of Ergo Sum will cause Telesto Bolts to litter the floor in a circular pattern. However, when heavy attacking a chunky boy, the bolts will instantly explode, dealing all of their damage to the main target. This sword can pull double duty, which is a nice change of pace. Now we can get to the weapon section. I'm going to be honest, the primary weapon does not matter that much in this build since you'll be stuck in third person playing Elden Ring, so use whatever you want. I'll still put up some recommendations on screen. Let's begin with the arc. For this, we're going to use an Ergo Sum with a caster frame and arc conductor in either Request or Summon Bonum. The roll on Ergo Sum is the bane of all red bars and even some yellow bars. As soon as you initiate a heavy attack after blocking, you're going to get Restoration ×2 and Arc Conductor, turning you into an angry Tesla coil. If anything tests you, you're likely going to kill it in under 5 seconds. Bequest is a well-known sword from the Deepstone Crypt raid. This sword will serve as our main DPS option and can be crafted with Relentless Strikes and Surrounded. Relentless Strikes gives the weapon much better ammo economy, and Surrounded grants a 35% damage increase. With our matching weapon surges, this blade will cut through enemies like butter. You also can't forget that the Bray Inheritance Origin trait causes hits with the sword to refund 2% grenade and class ability energy. This keeps your 2 most important abilities ready almost all the time. If you prefer to double down on the add clear aspect of the build and want to let your abilities do the damage, look no further than Summon Bonum. This is technically the first Wayframe sword and looks like it came straight out of Elden Ring. The role I would craft for this beauty is Hungry Edge, Balance Guard, Relentless Strikes, and Chaos Reshaped. As discussed a little earlier, Relentless Strikes grants swords a much better ammo economy, which will let us spam swings more. The star of the sword, though, is Chaos Reshaped. This perk acts like Heal Clip and Frenzy. Being in combat for 12 seconds grants a stack of Chaos Reshaped for 7 seconds, and remaining in combat for another 12 grants a second. The first stack grants Summon Bonum a 20% damage buff, and 2 stacks grants a 35% damage buff. However, at 2 stacks, you will receive a healing burst every 7 seconds which heals for 35 HP. This doesn't sound like much, but if you're just standing and blocking, it can save your life. Solar is up next, and for now, I would use an Ergo Sum with a caster frame and Wolfpack rounds accompanied by False Idols. An Ergo Sum with a caster frame and Wolfpack rounds allows us to handle enemies from afar and grants our heavy sword even more damage. There's not much to say about this combo other than that it's very good and only gets better while Transcendent. Try to keep Wolfpack rounds active as much as possible if you want to use your heavy sword for big damage. False Idols is the Solar Vortex frame sword from the Pale Heart Destination and it's my first time recommending it on the channel. There's a decent amount of flexibility for this weapon, so let's break it down. Usually, Vortex frames aren't known for their add clear potential, but False Idols may have flipped the script. It can be crafted with Incandescent in the 3rd column and Chain Reaction in the 4th. Just like Tyranny of Heaven, explosions from Chain Reaction can trigger Incandescent, and vice versa. This roll will wipe away red bars just as well as Sunshot. However, if you really need DPS and nothing else, I would craft the blade with Relentless Strikes in either Surrounded or Bait and Switch. Relentless Strikes returns 1 ammo after landing 3 light attacks in quick succession. Surrounded grants us a 35% damage buff while surrounded by 3 or more enemies within 15 meters. This is nice, but not always feasible, since we will have Wolfpack rounds chewing out the adds, leaving us with very few enemies to proc the perk. Enter Bait and Switch. This perk doesn't need kills or multiple enemies, just a swap rotation. The damage buff provided is 30%, which is lower, but it has a much easier upkeep and works with Wolfpack rounds instead of against it. Finally, let's take a look at the Void Boys. We're going to use the other half in the heavy slot. On our Void Ergo Sum, I would suggest going for a Vortex frame plus Unplanned Reprieve. This roll can pull off some really easy DPS quickly and do some add clear fairly well. However, keep in mind that the heavy attacks cost 6 ammo to execute and will suffer from ammo economy issues if you don't use the Prismatic grenade to regen ammunition. If you just want to use a sword and not have to worry about ammo issues, then try to stick to Wolfpack rounds and any other frame. In the heavy slot, I chose to use the other half. While this sword is not as commonly seen, it has some pretty great potential for overall utility. For the speed demons, go ahead and try out Eager Edge plus Vorpal Weapon. This combo allows you to traverse maps easily and combines well with the Titan Lift ability. However, it will lack a bit in the damage department when compared to the other options. That's where the second role comes in, Relentless Strikes and Surrounded. I know you are likely tired of me recommending it, but I'm telling you, it's really good. With the amount of crowd control you have in your kit, Glacier Nades, Drunker's Lash, and Electrified Snare, you can easily proc Surrounded and safely dispatch enemies. Alright everyone, that is all you need to slay the Elden Beast. This build is really fun in my eyes, and I hope you think so too. Having completed that Lost Sector 20 light levels under, I can say that this is one of the most fun and strong builds to date. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching and happy farming. Stay safe.